Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I hope you have been able to join the meeting okay. Can you just give me a quick thumbs up or a wave just to make sure that you can all see the slides on the screen? Amazing, good, thank you. Got some physical thumbs up and a few ones online as well. Brilliant, thank you so much. So welcome to the Berkeley Foundation's Pride webinar. We're really pleased that you could join us today to celebrate the work of our partners in LGBTQ+ advocacy and inclusion. The Berkeley Foundation was set up in 2011 with a charitable arm of the Berkeley Group, and so we're an independent charity, and we work with communities, organisations and young people in the areas that the Berkeley Group operates. Today's Pride webinar is about amplifying the voices of our partners and making space for conversations to happen. We've got some brilliant speakers here today, so I'm really pleased that they're able to join us and share their expertise. To introduce myself, some of you know me already, and for others I might be a new face. My name is Gemma Powell. I'm the Engagement Manager at the Berkeley Foundation, and my pronouns are she, her. My role as Engagement Manager is by far the best role in the whole of Berkeley Group. I get to work with our network of foundation champions and staff across the business to connect them with our charity partners and to really maximise the impact of the work that we do together. Emma, can you change the slide, please? Hopefully we can have a slide change. So to introduce our speakers today, we have Steph, who joins us as a young adult volunteer from Esteem, Emma, who's Head of Programmes at Esteem, Kat Fry, who is the Director of Youth Services at Youth Concern, and unfortunately Chelsea hasn't been able to join us today. She was away on holiday and I think she's got delayed coming back. So we don't have Chelsea, but we'll be able to cover all the aspects of our panel discussion. Anyway, thank you. Emma, next slide, please. So before we start, just a little bit of housekeeping. In a moment, we're going to have a get involved section. So if you can have your phone ready to scan a QR code, that would be brilliant. We've all got our mics off, and if you would like to put your cameras on, that would be brilliant. I understand it's lunchtime, so you might be munching your lunch at the same time, and that's absolutely fine. At the end of the session, we've got I'll be sending out an email with lots of information in, and we'd really love your feedback on today's session. It is the first Pride webinar that we've hosted, and we'd love to do it again, so your feedback is really important to that. Also, Pride Month is very much about taking action. So following on from the webinar, I'll also be outlining some ways that you can get further involved in the work that our partnerships do. So thank you, Emma. Next slide. So on the agenda today, in a moment, I'm going to invite our partners to give an introduction to the work that they do at their organisations and their work with LGBTQ+ young people. Steph is very kindly going to reflect on his experiences of working with Esteem as a young person. We'll have a panel discussion followed by some open question and answer time. And then we'll move into ways that you can get involved. And then we'll follow with a quick question about actions moving forwards. And then we'll close at 1 o'clock. So we've got lots to get through. So thank you very much for getting involved today. So next slide, please, Emma. So what I'd like to do first is I'd like you to share what Pride Month means to you. So if you could grab your phone and scan the QR code, hopefully tech permitting, it should take you to our Menti board. So you'll be asked to input 3 words about what Pride Month means to you. So if you can put in your 3 keywords and then press submit, because you can't submit them one by one. So if you do that, hopefully, if the tech gods are on my side, the Menti board should update, hopefully. Fantastic, we've got some great words coming in. Love, acceptance, celebration, education, awareness, allyship, respect, fantastic, inclusive, human rights, absolutely, freedom, family, kindness, joy, visibility, for sure. Oh, this is amazing. Thank you very much, everyone. We've got a few more coming in there. Colourful, yep, definitely. Celebration, empowerment. Oh, fantastic. Okay, we'll have a few more seconds to do that. If anybody else has got a few more words to put in. I think this very much sets the tone of our webinar today, and all of these things are really covered in our content today. It's very much about education, it's about celebration, it's about allyship, awareness, and human rights really very much underpins everything that we're doing. And just the opportunity to come together today is really important. So thank you so much for all of your brilliant words there. That's a fantastic start. Okay, Emma, can we change the slides? Thank you. Okay, I'm now going to hand over to our partners to introduce some of the work that they do. So Emma, can I start with you, if that's okay, over at Esteem?
Hi, yes. So we're based in Esteem, which is in Shoreham by Sea in West Sussex, along the coast. And we work with 14 to 26-year-olds, offering a lot of different support services and opportunities. So that includes social gatherings and shared meals. We run a community mentoring program and a counselling service and wellbeing stuff, as well as just a space for young adults to be themselves and to explore kind of who they are. For LGBTQ plus specific, we've run some groups for the community run by young adults themselves. And we also have a specific LGBTQ plus counselling offer because we've identified that actually that is quite difficult to find and to come by and kind of support young adults through their journey.
Brilliant. Thank you so much there, Emma. That's amazing. And Kat, can I hand over to you, please?
Hello, yes, thank you. My name is Kat Fry. I'm Director of Youth Services at Youth Concern, and we are a youth charity in Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire. We offer similar projects to Emma just mentioned at Esteem, so we also have youth counselling. We have our drop-in centre, which is an open space for young people aged between 13 and 25 to come and meet friends, spend time with their friends there, have a cooked meal, access one-to-one support, sexual health, yeah, all sorts really. And then we also have a property in Aylesbury which houses up to 9 young people at risk of homelessness, and we support them with their independent living skills so that they can move out from our house within 18 months into independent living. And the project that I specifically wanted to talk about today is our Butterflies project, which we run from our drop-in centre. That is for 13 to 25-year-olds who are gender questioning, trans, and non-binary, kind of anything within that. And young people, what they come to Butterflies as a social group. So they meet other people, it's a safe space for them, and they can dress however they want, they can be called whatever they want, use whatever pronouns. It's a space for them to just access how they like and meet other like-minded young people. So at Butterflies, they play games, do crafts, listen to music, have movie nights, hang out and show me TikTok videos of cats, whatever they want. So it's just an open space for our young people.
Thank you so much, Kat. It's really great to hear about like the depth and the scope of the wraparound services that you provide to young people through your organisations. And I'm really looking forward to kind of delving a little bit deeper into that in our panel discussion in a moment. So thank you for those really great introductions to your services at Esteem and Youth Concern. Now I'm going to hand back over to Emma and to Steph, who joined us as a young person volunteer from Esteem. And Steph's going to share his insight through his connection with Esteem and your journey over the last few years. So thank you very much for your time today, Steph. And Emma and Steph, am I okay to hand over to you now?
Yes, thank you. We're sitting next to each other, so we're going to share a mic and sound to not get any feedback. But we prepared a few questions. Just look at this. So, Steph, you've been involved with Esteem for 3 years. I think we worked out the other day.
Give or take, yeah.
Give or take. Can you share some of the things that have made you feel welcome at Esteem?
God, that's a while ago. So yeah, nearly 3 years here. First came here through Citizens Advice, through a very difficult time. And straight off the bat, I was asked my pronouns, what my name was. In fact, if you don't mind me saying, you were even there when I was coming here first. Told Citizens Advice off because they kept misgendering me. And yeah, it was the fact that, you know, seeing pride flags everywhere, always asked in meetings what your pronouns were. So if you were questioning or trying to work out new names or anything like that, you were able to, without any judgment or like pressuring or anything like that. It was just a friendly space for like-minded people. Yeah.
Great. And I think I wanted to also ask you about something that you've achieved through Esteem for the LGBTQ plus community.
So this was quite a recent thing. In response to the Supreme Court ruling on trans rights, just to very quickly summarize for those that don't probably know, but you know, my brain, the ruling on what a woman means kind of affects how we would be able to be in day-to-day society. So obviously I felt impacted because I'm openly trans man. So, and I knew for a fact that others might feel the same way. So I brought it up in our young adults Esteem team, a bunch of young adults who come together to help run the charity. And we actually came up with a statement together to showcase that young adults at Esteem are welcome. Anyone that wants to join are welcome. And that there's support on offer for those that feel affected or, you know, just wanting to come in for a chat because of it.
And can you just say a bit about the process of how you brought that to the group's attention?
I said it during the meeting at the end. I said if anyone didn't mind me bringing something to attention, and no one said no. In fact, they all did hear about it and was wondering how to bring it across. So the fact that I was able to voice what was going on as openly as anyone should be able to, and knowing for a fact that others are going to be helped from the statement makes a good impact.
Thank you. Yeah, we were really appreciative of you helping us to voice that kind of message of inclusion to other young adults that might use Esteem too.
Well, it's on Facebook or many social media platforms, and that's how when I saw it the other day, that's when I knew for a fact that if I saw it on my Facebook feed, for example, I know others would be seeing it too. So that made a massive impact.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Steph, for sharing your thoughts there. It's great to hear your journey through Esteem and really what made you feel welcome and having that like that confidence from esteem and from your peers about asking open questions, and being very much led by you and where you're at your particular journey and at that particular time. But then also the role of esteem around youth leadership and giving you, like working with you to raise important concerns for you and action them. And to be a real advocate for the organisation and for others as well. And as you say, I think it's a really challenging time at the moment, and having that visibility and that open discussion is really important. So thank you so much for leading the way on that. So we're going to kind of move into our panel discussion now, so very much to pick up on the themes that Steph has raised in your feedback there about open and inclusive spaces. And it's wonderful to hear that Esteem has had such an impact for you, and somewhere where you clearly feel very at home as you're now working with Esteem as a volunteer. And that's always a great testament to an organisation when young people come back and start to work for you. That's incredible. And I wondered, Emma, if there's anything that you wanted to add to Steph's feedback about what makes Esteem inclusive and welcoming space.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. I think, as Steph kind of mentioned, for us as an organisation, there's something important about visibility and doing that inclusion work before it's kind of, instead of being a reactionary step, but more about a proactive. So thinking about how spaces can be welcoming. This might include making sure that there are gender neutral facilities that anyone can use. It could also be, I think, Steph, you mentioned around seeing pride flags, and
we've even got the banners in our activities room of different types of flags, like the current pride flag, the intersex flag, the trans flag, so many flags that I can't even name because there's so many. But
yeah, and I think that just helps to create these kind of layered vision. I remember a young adult coming in who was exploring their gender and using they them pronouns, and was kind of exploring kind of that idea of maybe not fitting into those binary categories, and seeing that we had gender neutral signs. And they weren't very verbal, they were very nervous, but when they saw those signs, they just did like a silent fist pump when they walked past. And I think it's those little moments of preempting and trying to create those welcoming environments that make a lot. And Steph, while we were talking earlier in preparation for this, you also mentioned just having the freedom, I think Kat mentioned it as well, to turn up to a space and experiment, whether that be with clothing or name or pronouns, and that being okay.
Yeah, I remember like when I first came here a couple of times, I was trying to work out what clothes I felt comfortable with or what haircut I felt comfortable with. And it turns out my casual smart attire sort of fits, and my usual go-to haircut being quite short. But it's the fact that you're able to try it out, because not a lot of places locally even that would allow you to even experiment, let alone because you're expected to know off the bat, and it's like not everyone does.
Yeah, so just allowing that space, and I think just not assuming where people are at, but just checking in with them regularly. Yes, it's a multiple different things. It's about layering up, but I think there's something about visibility, there's something about preemptive and not reactive, and something about just opening up that conversation to ask people what they need and want in the space.
Yeah, thank you so much. So many important themes there. And Kat, we've had some amazing conversations about your reflections on what makes Youth Concern a safe and welcoming space for young people. And I wondered if you could share some of your feedback.
Yes, and thank you, Steph and Emma. It's really great to hear about Esteem, and I think there's a lot of parallels with Youth Concern, because we also have a lot of displays in our drop-in centre that, like you said, Emma, that visibility that we are inclusive of, well, not just LGBTQ plus community, but all communities. But we, for example, our butterflies group do have this really beautiful butterflies display. So they actually created all these butterflies that go across our wall a couple of years ago. it wasn't actually a young person from our Butterflies group, but just who attends our drop-in, who mentioned about having a gender neutral toilet, for example, and because we do have the space for that, we were able to do that, which was led by the young people. We also have a youth panel, which is kind of our youth leadership, and actually I was looking at who is part of that, and I think it is about half of our youth panel are from the LGBTQ plus community, and so therefore they have a big influence on youth concern and kind of how we can create that inclusive environment. Yeah, and I think in general, when our drop-in centre, we have kind of our boundaries and our agreement for using the space, and part of that is, if someone was being misgendered, for example, like you said, Steph, that we wouldn't tolerate that, and that would, the person who continued to do that would be spoken to by our staff, and so hopefully that shows to all our young people that we are allies as well, and that we're not just going to allow people to disrespect others. So yeah, as part of coming to Youth Concern, all the young people have to agree to our contract. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Kat. And that really picks up on a previous conversation with Emma, and who said about calling people in rather than calling them out, and having that space, and through that agreement of how people are going to act and behave in a space, that it opens the channels for that conversation to happen, where you can create a really safe and inclusive space, both to make mistakes, but also to learn and to grow together as an organisation. Thank you. And thinking about the services at Youth Concern, housing is one of your offers to young people who are at risk of homelessness or experiencing homelessness. And I wondered, Kat, if you could tell us a bit more about what safe housing means for LGBTQ plus young people.
Yeah, so yeah, we do have 9 bedrooms for young people to live in at one time, and I think part of their interview process is getting to know them as a person, and very much like where they are on that day. And so part of that is, as organisations, we tend to have to ask people their demographics. And if you imagine being a 18-year-old who's currently homeless and having to then go through all these processes in order to be housed, including these long interviews, which we have to do, we have to do it because we have to make sure it's a safe place for people. But part of that is we try and just ensure that anyone that comes to interview for us, we make them feel comfortable. And like with our drop-in service, if they are using a name that's not their official name, that's cool, as long as we know their, government name, as they like to call it. Also, if they want to tell us their pronouns, if they want to share their sexuality, it's very much about, where are you right now? And, if they're not able to share some of those demographics immediately, that's fine. We'll work it out as they move in. But it's really about from what young people tell me, just people making you feel that you can be yourself. And the way, like I say, the way we do that is to really meet people where they are, and just, how do you identify, not necessarily saying how do you identify today, but just accepting that how they are today might not be how they are next week, and just going with that. So I know so we're in Buckinghamshire, I know that in London there are specific LGBT plus hostels and supported accommodation that exists. Now we don't have that in Buckinghamshire, so the best we can do is to make all people feel comfortable and able to be themselves when they first meet us.
Thank you so much, Kat. And Steph, you told us a little bit about your experience of accessing housing support, and kind of there's so many similarities in the points that Kat has raised there. And I wondered if you could share with the group here today a little bit about your experience of what's been really positive for you when you've needed additional housing support.
Yeah, so Esteem doesn't provide housing in the same way, but they know of like places you could go. Now, unfortunately, by the time that I needed to go to one of those places, I kind of had to think on my feet. one of which was a weekend I had to stay in a hostel in Brighton, which basically I booked it all, and like I didn't really think anything of it until I went to the reception, started booking in and whatnot. And I was asked point blank, because I openly said, look, I'm trans, you know, I don't know if this will affect anything, leaving myself quite open. Looking back, I know I'm quite lucky in that sort of sense, but what made it a lot more impactful was the fact that the receptionist just turned around and said, well, what do you feel comfortable in? Do you feel comfortable going into the women's section, for instance, or do you feel more comfortable in the men's? And obviously that was like a year, 2 years ago, but the fact that I was asked which one I was comfortable in, it kind of threw me off, if I'm completely honest with you, because I wasn't expecting that. Because I mean, being in a hostel anyway is quite a risky situation, but it's better than being on the street, I suppose. But the fact that he was open and willing to accommodate my needs just because of my identity, he didn't have to do that. To this day, I know I'm very lucky and grateful for that. It's, you know, quite an impact.
Oh, thank you. I don't know how the others feel in the group, but that was really moving to hear your experience. And I think knowing as a young person what's really important to you and having that opportunity to choose and to voice what works best for you, especially in the current climate around trans rights, makes it so important to be very much led by the trans community themselves. So thank you so much for sharing your feedback there. Thinking about kind of what's led Steph to positive, like your real sense of positive mental well-being and the support that you've received along the way. Kat, I wondered if you could tell us a bit more about the Butterflies group and the real impact that you have there in supporting positive mental well-being and how that works at a youth concern.
Yes. I think everything we do at Youth Concern, hopefully, is supporting people's mental well-being. All the things we've already mentioned in terms of making people feel safe and not judged and included. I think some of the great things about the way Butterflies is run is that the two people who run it are one is a youth worker and the other is a counsellor. So straight away we've got people with those skills to, you know, have the one-to-ones if people need to at the time. You know, most of people in our team are mental health first aid trained, and so I think when you work with young people, sadly you're quite used to having conversations about poor mental health, about suicide ideation. It's quite commonplace. So our team, our staff are used to having those conversations and are, you know, able to support people who are feeling that way. Because we have our own counselling service like Esteem, you know, it's really helpful because we can directly refer people into that. So straight away it's a lot easier for people to access counselling. If any of you have had to try and access counselling as a young person in this country, you know, there's not a lot of options unless you can pay. So it's an amazing that we get the funding to be able to offer that to so many young people. And no, I think that's everything really, but I think our young people as well are well versed in talking about mental health, and so that peer support that you get from a group like Butterflies is huge, and that has a huge impact. I think sometimes I have formerly worked at a mental health charity, and I think often there's this feeling that unless you're accessing specific mental health support that you're not getting the right help, and actually that community, that sense of belonging, that feeling safe has such a huge impact on our well-being, and I don't think we should disregard that. You know, I think it makes a huge impact.
Definitely, like that everyday support, and that kind of inclusive, like those connections that you form between people, between young people, between staff, and that kind of interconnected network is so important, isn't it, in the work that you do? And it makes, like as a funder, like we're so proud of the support services that you're able to provide for your young people, knowing that when statutory NHS services, they're so overstretched, that there is, for many young people through your services, another avenue to get the support that they need, both in that community but also through formal services such as counselling. So thank you for sharing that. Kind of on the theme of allyship, that's it's obviously, it really underpins everything that we do, and it's part of why we're here today. Emma, so Esteem has a really clearly defined LGBTQ plus inclusion statement that you've published on your website. And I wondered if you could tell us more about what effective allyship looks like at Esteem.
Yeah, thank you. So I think for us at Esteem, it's a lot about, as staff, as an organisation, doing that work, upskilling, becoming au fait with terminology, trying to keep up to date with things, and being really active in that, and around, not just around LGBTQ plus, but all kind of equality and diversity. And that comes from an organisational commitment level. So we have compulsory training for all staff, so that they have space to discuss the unique experiences that some LGBTQ young adults might have, and how to offer that effective support. And I think that's really important, that is organisational wide, as well as supporting young adults in the LGBTQ community to have a voice and to build platforms, because it's about taking some of that emotional labour around the facilitation, kind of I always call it sort of like the boring admin stuff, and if people can take that as an ally in order to take some of that burden away, but to free up the space where somebody can speak about their experience or have a say, or with our inclusion statement, that was very much informed by lots of different young adults that were in Esteem at the time, and was part of a bigger project looking at some of our processes, procedures, policies, and how inclusive they are. So I think as much as possible around allyship is taking some of that more kind of general, sometimes like less exciting frontline stuff, but building those foundations and putting in that extra work to educate ourselves, and to be aware of what's going on for different people in the community, and creating that space for growth and dialogue. We often talk about creating a braver spaces rather than safer spaces, where we're having maybe uncomfortable conversations. We're trying to unpick some of our biases, some of our assumptions, and also supporting young adults to do the same thing. As much as we can create a safe enough space at Esteem, it's also about equipping people with those skills and that resilience and confidence out in the world where people might not feel the same. So I think as much as we can have those braver space, have those conversations to challenge things, to talk through stuff that's going on, is really important.
Oh, thank you. I love the concept of braver spaces, and I think there's so much that we can take away from that about how to have conversations, and all founded in knowledge and education, and just having the grounding to ask those questions and to challenge the status quo. Thank you so much. And Kat, from you, any particular kind of, you've talked really broadly around allyship already and the amazing things happening at Youth Concern. And I think when we spoke in advance of the webinar, you had some lovely examples from young people themselves around what allyship looked like between your young people. So if there's anything else you wanted to bring forward, that would be amazing.
I'm glad you prompted me, because I was just loving everything Emma was saying. And was
just... I know. I was like, note taking.
That was lovely. Yeah, we've actually so I've mentioned Butterflies. I think because we have our drop-in centre where Butterflies runs from, but outside the normal drop-in times, there's a lot of young people that access both of our services, or all of our services. And so when we're in our drop-in space, you know, things come up between young people, and you know, every day the team have a hour handover where, you know, talk about the day before, and any young people they need to sort of particularly check in with, etc. And one of the things recently was about a young person coming to the staff and said they had been misgendered at the centre, and kind of what were they going to do about it. So I just happened to be there. I wasn't even part of the meeting. I could just hear the team talking about it, and it was great because one of the youth workers there also works at Butterflies, and so is particularly kind of, yeah, well equipped to discuss these things. She was kind of educating the team on how to manage it, and it was, I guess it was sort of allyship at work, because rather than, you know, so the young trans person came and spoke to the team, but then the team were really stepping up and kind of discussing as a group, what can we do, how can we support this young person better, and then they were going to feed back to that young person and kind of work with them, which I just thought was really nice to hear, because there is sometimes uncertainty around how people do present, or what pronouns people are using. And like you said, I think, Emma, that, you know, people's gender journey is sometimes they're at an exploration stage, and so it's just it's that, like you said, that unconscious bias, just reminding ourselves that if you're not sure where someone's at, you know, have that conversation with them and be open about it. And then I think between young people as well, yeah, there was a young person who was attending for the first time recently, our drop-in, and they were quite shy, and I could see a couple of other young people kind of went over to them and they were introducing themselves. And I overheard that, and then about 2 hours later I overheard the group inviting them to Pride, and they were planning to go together, and you should join us, and it was just really nice to see that in those few hours that young person had entered our building, there was already that real inclusion, that they were and the friendships. I think 2 of them actually started dating not long after that. It happens very quickly sometimes, but it was really nice to see. And yeah, I think like, again, everything Emma said, I just agree with. Yeah, just training staff, making sure everyone's yeah, gets more comfortable just having these conversations, because it's not, yeah, once you've had a conversation like this a few times, you know, it's okay. We get things wrong, but that's okay.
It's that journey of learning. And I think, like, everything that you said really highlights your unique positions in young people's lives, that you're not school, you're not the family, and it's a real safe space where they can come and make new friends, and find very like-minded people, and yeah, have that real sense of connection and building friendships, and yeah, all contributing to positive mental well-being. So thank you so much for sharing those incredible stories, and Steph, thank you for sharing your experiences with us too. That was fascinating and literally hanging off every word. So thank you so much for bringing such rich experiences to our webinar today. Emma, if you could change the slide, please. We now have a little bit of time for open question and answers. So I've kind of guided us through the main themes around safe spaces, around inclusion, what that means in respect to housing, allyship, and advocacy and inclusion and positive mental well-being. And I'd like to open it up to our attendees today. If you had any questions that either build on what we've already discussed, or if there's something new that's coming up for you, maybe within your personal lives or your organisations, that you'd like to ask any of our team here today. So Steph, Kat or Emma, if you wanted to raise your hand function, or you can just pop your mic on if you're able to, hopefully, I don't know. So if anybody had a question they'd like to start to get the ball rolling, that would be amazing.
Hi all, I'll go first if that's okay.
Hi, thank you.
Hi, so I'm Duco Francas, and I'm one of the co-chairs of Berkeley's Pride Network. Firstly, thanks all for sharing your feedback and your insights today, and particularly Steph. It's really amazing to hear your story firsthand. So thank you for being so open today. I just wondered, just talking about some of the challenges that's been highlighted around housing and mental well-being. I just wondered, and perhaps it's one for Kat. If you had if you give us a sense for the scale of this challenge in sort of the communities that you work in, is there sort of, what's the order of magnitude that we're sort of talking about here? Because it sounds like you're dealing with quite a lot of demand potentially.
Yeah, good question. I think I mean, we are quite a small charity in a town in Buckinghamshire, but we have around 400 young people accessing our drop-in on a monthly basis. We have 70 young people accessing counselling on a monthly basis. Our house is always full. So yeah, I guess in terms of how it specifically impacts on the LGBTQ plus community, again, the fact that half of our youth panel are from that community, I think we are seeing, I don't know the exact percentage off the hand, but yeah, a higher percentage than maybe we'd like to see of the LGBTQ plus community who are accessing our support. But also the positives of that is that they feel able to, and you know, this community exists and we want to be there for them. So yes, I think the positive is that so many young people feel safe and able to come to us and talk to us. You know, it's a privilege for young people to be so open and honest and disclose things to us. So I'm glad they do. I'm glad that we're here for them, but obviously in a perfect world we wouldn't need to exist. So
yeah, I really love that the open-minded approach that you're taking and letting, I guess, the young people lead you rather than the other way around. That was really yeah, incredible to hear as an approach. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I think there's a huge movement. I don't know if you agree, Emma, but with like youth charities, you know, we need to be led by young people, don't we? Otherwise, we're not meeting young people and their needs. You know, we think we're young, but I'm not. You know, I'm not that young, so I need young people to tell me what they need.
I used to. Let's try that again.
You had it the other way where Steph, you were muted. Yeah, oh, there we go.
Maybe try that.
Statement I always used to say quite early on when I was at Esteem. Rep's not my first thing. In this meeting, I've done so many, but one specifically, I can't remember the company I used to help with, but it was involving young adults, and I, off the cuff, just turned around and said, you don't know what the young adults need unless you ask them. And that brought such an impact, not only for other people to understand, like, you know, times do change quite quick, and unless you don't ask specifically, a lot of the time you can be trying to do something that you think might be helping, and in reality it might not. And that's just from first-hand experience with a lot of stuff. But here specifically, youth-led do really power a lot of the events or anything that we plan here. An example of that would be the clothes swap. We've run clothes swaps. We've partnered up with others to, you know, promote or be inclusive of many communities, including Pride. You know, it's literally just ask. You don't know unless you ask.
Thank you, Steph. I think that's, you know, that's an amazing takeaway from today. Like, if you don't ask, you don't know. So thank you so much. Thanks for your great question, Duco, and thanks, Kat and Steph, for your responses to that. That's really great. There is a question in the chat from Jonathan, who's head of responsible business at St George. John, I don't know if you wanted to pop your mic on. Or if
yeah,
you want
sorry, I'm halfway between my lunch, so
thank you so much.
No, thank you, really interesting. Yeah, it was more around kind of, I guess, as an industry or as a company, how we can attract more of a diverse workforce, particularly LGBTQ plus, but also kind of when we get new joiners, top tip that we could kind of take on as part of the onboarding process and beyond.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to jump in on that one?
I can say, I think In terms of that, a little bit of like what we're saying about the preemptive stuff. So I think what helps in order to attract is to look inward first and see what it is you're doing to open up those kind of channels of inclusivity. And that might be also about where your advertising opportunities, thinking about making that broad and available. It might be about visibility. It might be about representation. But I think there's always a risk that what we then end up doing is, for those that are in the LGBTQ community, is kind of saying this is on you. And I think my message is around when we look at allyship, when we look at support, what is it that we can take off in that emotional labour as organisations, as places of work, to kind of look at that stuff and educate ourselves. So what are some of the barriers? And then if there is somebody within your organisation that is part of a particular community that is saying this is difficult, or they're not engaging in something, or they're not turning up, then ask why and listen to the answer. I think what's come through really strongly with Steph is like ask questions and listen to the answers, and take that seriously. And what Kat was saying as well around, if something is brought to your attention, really make that commitment to listen to that and to try and understand that, rather than think we can sometimes be a bit defensive and a bit dismissive. So about being open, but yeah, I think it's about being that proactive openness. We have about statistically like 30% LGBTQ plus young adults, and we're not a targeted service, but I think there's something around that voice exploration space that we've created that does make that kind of safe environment for people that want to explore themselves and who they are, particularly in terms of transitioning into adulthood. And I think it is a lot around how can you create that space so that when people come, it's open, and how can you really examine some of the things you might take for granted, whether that be gendered language or some stereotypes around roles, and really just start noticing those things and listening actively.
Really useful, thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's really great to pick up on the visibility, but then having the internal systems in place to really embed that and move it away from like kind of tokenistic to really having that organisational support for people both at the start and throughout their journey with an organisation. Thank you. If there are any further questions, feel free to pop them into the chat and our partners would be able to respond to those. And it's something that I can make sure that we include in our feedback after the session as well. So if you did have any other questions, please do pop it in. And thanks to all of our panelists for your amazing feedback there. It's really, really insightful. Emma, if you could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So thinking about the action side, and those kind of themes really came from our panel discussion around how we can be proactive in fostering inclusivity and advocacy. We've got a few ideas to kind of run through to take away following the session. So thinking about our journey of learning and different resources that we can access to do that, and definitely following our different organisations on social media, following the foundation is a really easy first step. Having a look at the websites from our organisations that joined us today. And after the session, I'll also send out a few resources that have come up in the process of putting this webinar together, both from our partners, but also from the foundation. Taking positive action in joining networks and being visible and kind of representing is also really important. And Berkeley Group has a really strong Pride network. So we've got around 120 members, both from the LGBTQ plus community, but also allies as well. So we've got an amazing annual programme of learning and events, which is really important for us as an organisation. So I'll send the email address if you're not part of that network already. Please do sign up for the mailing list and get involved in the events coming up throughout the year. We also have a few spaces left on the Berkeley Group Pride in London parade. So drop an email to the Berkeley Group Pride Network email address and get signed up for that on the 5th of July. It's a brilliant event and just really important to have Berkeley there and to be represented. Another way that you can support our organisations here today and the wider foundation network of charity partners is through payroll giving. You can also support a charity of your own choosing through our payroll giving scheme. So if you don't know much about payroll giving, it's an amazing way to give. So deductions are taken from your salary, so it means that you don't get taxed on that money, which is brilliant. Everyone loves dodging the tax man. I didn't say that. And for charities, it's brilliant because it's a regular and reliable source of income. So you make monthly donations from your salary. So charities know roughly how much they can expect to come in during that month, which helps them plan for their service delivery in the long term, which is absolutely essential for charities. Also, if you choose to give to a foundation, strategic or community partner, there's also pound for pound match funding available, which is absolutely brilliant way to give, meaning you can give more for less. Also, after the webinar, we'll be working with our partners around opportunities for volunteering. We've spoken a lot before about their bespoke services for LGBTQ plus young people, and there might be opportunities coming up in the future as we build on our relationships to get involved in some of those services or supporting Youth Concern and Esteem more widely with skill sharing or knowledge, extra pairs of hands to support with their capacity to provide services. And for all Berkeley Foundation charity partners, if you do choose to get involved and volunteer your time, we're able to match fund your time with a donation to that charity, and our rate is £500 per 8 hours given. So not only can you give your skills and expertise, but also we can make a contribution that gives long-term funding support to that charity, and it's unrestricted, so they can divert the funds to where they need it the most. Thank you very much, Emma. Can we have the next slide? Okay, and in preparation for the webinar, our partners have put together some really great ideas about possible fundraising or donation ideas and how that might impact on their organisations and young people. So there's a range of different options here, from small donations to larger donations. So for example, if you chose to donate like £10 to £20 to Youth Concern, they can use it to buy some art supplies for their Butterflies group or a DVD player. For Esteem, for example, £40 could buy a shared meal at one of their drop-in spaces. So again, really supporting with that community aspect. And also we talked about the specialist counselling services provided at the different organisations. So a financial donation could also support with the delivery of that. With New Horizon, who weren't able to join us, there's a range of different ways to get involved. So, for example, £40 could support a young person with the provision of a sturdy bag. So when they're moving between temporary accommodation, that bag will really help them to move their belongings between the spaces. So there's lots of different ways to get involved, and even a small donation will go a long way for our partners. In the follow-up email after the webinar, I've included donation links to each of our charity partners if you would like to make a donation, either personally or get involved and do some fundraising together as a team, which would be brilliant. But if you do choose to make a donation, please do write a note on your donation form that you would like. It's from the Berkeley Foundation Pride webinar, and our partners can direct that funding to their specific services. Fantastic. Okay, so lots of different ways to get involved and lots of actions that we can take moving forward. Emma, can we move on to our last slide, please? We've got a few minutes left. So I wanted to end with a final kind of hard-hitting one thing to take away about what's one actionable step each of us can take to foster inclusivity. And I wondered, Steph, Emma or Kat, if there was a volunteer to go first with this. Emma's looking at Steph and Steph's looking at Emma.
Just check a nod. We've got a nod.
Oh, dear Lord. We were talking about it yesterday, very briefly. And I was saying something about how wearing something physical, whether it be like a bracelet or something as small as even a pride badge, you know, just showing something physically on you so that when you're out in public, it's like, oh, I could be safe with them, sort of thing, you know, whether it be you're a part of it or just an ally, it doesn't matter. You know that they're okay with it. You know that you're going to be fine with it. And yeah, so wearing something physical as small as a badge.
Yeah, and that visibility. Thank you, Steph. Emma, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, I think for me, the actionable is that journey around what assumptions we make. So I think the first step on that is just becoming aware and noticing those times when you might assume someone's pronouns, or you default to gender binary language that might reflect some traditional gender roles. Because I think that does risk making people feel excluded. And actually those being aware and noticing is the first step in kind of changing and questioning that. As a society, we're very heteronormative, very binary thinking. So I think it's about just moving a little bit further in our awareness of when we fall into those and questioning them, even though that might feel a little bit uncomfortable, and then thinking about how we might change that.
Thank you. Yeah, self-awareness and kind of rooted in action and change. Thank you. And Kat, over to you.
Yeah, I think to add on to what Emma said as well, like if to be a real ally is not to wait until something, you know, something that someone said, or you know, the presentation that someone has designed that only includes pictures of certain types of people. Be that ally that speaks up before and says, oh, could we maybe, you know, calling in, like you said, could we maybe think about being more inclusive in how we're, you know, advertising our services, how we're talking about the people we support, whatever it is. But it's, yeah, we don't want to wait until it's it's not up to the LGBTQ plus community to be the only people that speak up about these things. I think to be a real ally is to speak up yourself. So and actually, Steph, what you said, like if you're ever in that position where someone comes to you and says, I want to access support, you know, what can I access? That you just ask, what would you like to access? And just ask people. Can I add an extra cheeky one? That's to go and watch your local roller derby team, because roller derby is a very queer, inclusive sport. And if you want to see queerness in all its beautiful and just powerful way, go and watch roller derby. It's one of the only sports where non-binary people, for example, can play on whatever team they want, and it's very inclusive of all queer people. So, or join a team.
Thank you so much. That was just absolutely incredible. And yeah, 3 very key things to take away at the end of our webinar. So thank you very much. And yeah, sign me up for roller derby, watching first. It's been a long time since I was on a pair of roller skates. So thank you so much to Emma, Kat and Steph for joining us today. You have been absolutely incredible in sharing your experiences and your insight. It's been a fascinating conversation, and there's so much to take away from today. And to all of our Berkeley Group's colleagues who have been able to join us today, thank you so much for your time and for joining the conversation. So thank you very much, everybody. And I hope you have a very good end of Pride Month, and thank you to the tech gods as well who have made the webinar possible. So thanks very much, everyone. Have a lovely afternoon, and I look forward to catching up soon. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.